Today is going to be a tough one. We're going to talk about the challenges of finding local community as a Black non-believer right here on Black Freethinkers. All right. Welcome, Black. Welcome, Black. Welcome, Black to Black Freethinkers.
I mean,
that
we
works.
here.
That works. We here.
It works.
I'm here with Darante. I'm here with Maya. Darante, let the people know where to find you real quick and what you got going on.
Hello. Well, listen, folks, my name is unique enough where if you type it in anywhere, you're going to get to me. So that's it. You type in my name, you're going to find me.
All right,
Same.
that's the ex-pastor doing the thing. And Maya has the same. Yeah.
Apparently, yeah. I got family finding me and stuff.
But Maya over there on Bad Science, you know what? I'm gonna say something about both of y'all. Both of y'all guest game is crazy. Like Maya, you've been having Kip and a whole bunch of superstars and crazy people over there. Because Bad Science Sunday's fun. Everybody wants to go over there and have a good time.
Yeah, I thought I was gonna have an issue with it because what do you call it? I was watching a bunch of other people and they had people dropping off left and right, and I was thinking, I want to open it up because I wanted it to be, like by the community and for the community.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, well, if the community doesn't show, what do we do? But that really hasn't been an issue.
Mm-hmm.
So, way to go, community.
Yay.
Darante, you just have a ton of guests, and you be having guests on there. You be fine. I don't even know who these people are half the time. Where do you find these people?
Yeah, we get the Rolodex.
it's a mix. I know some reach out to me, which was just beautiful.
Oh, that always helps.
Then others I've ran into on Skeptic Haven. So like Mark Peralta, he and I did. We hosted a show together on Skeptic Haven, and after that I was like, oh man, I realized that he and his wife were atheists and working in the deconstruction zone, and so I was like, hey man, I got to get y'all on Sunday sessions.
That's how we should speak of it, working in the deconstruction zone.
You know what I'm saying? Oh, that is dope, isn't it? Slipped up really on that. That was an accident.
You pastors, man, y'all be coming up with the flourishes.
Those are the two that you had. Was it yesterday on your show?
Last Sunday. Sunday. Yep. And they were amazing because they gave me a lot of insight into the Hispanic community, who, of course, is another minority that people just automatically assume is Christian. Catholic, and yes, absolutely, right. And so that was super fun. Jason Foe from Dragons and Genesis, he reached out to me, and I was like, oh yeah, no duh, let's do it, no brainer, because collaboration is kind of my thing, because collaboration is the language of community. You know what I'm saying? It's that's really how things get launched. And then Kyle Butler, I just saw him on Facebook, and he was just so nice, and so he was nice and cussing at the same time. And I was just like, yeah, I got to get you on, man. We got to. And of course, he was an ex-pastor as well, so I just felt like that would be a good fit.
So Andre is here. And look at the trees is in the chat. Good to see y'all.
Look at the trees.
So I'm gonna give y'all the setup for today. So a couple things been happening. So one is, I was playing cards with my dad, and I play cards with my dad and a bunch of his friends. And so, I'm probably the youngest. It might be another guy, probably a little bit older than me. Most of them pretty older guys. And one of the things I realized, it'd be so great for people to see it. I'm trying to figure out how to stream. It's a whole thing. But it's just so rare, especially for so many people, to just see 6 grown black men in a room essentially doing nothing but just having a positive good time, just playing cards, talking trash. And I felt like, damn, for so many people, like they never see this. They never just see just 6 men, just black men just sitting in a room, just doing something very regular and ordinary, eating food, talking shit, playing cards, talking about sports or whatever. So I think it's really powerful for people to see something like that. But over time, of course, I've noticed that, of course, most of them have some sort of religious affiliation to them. They don't strike me immediately as religious people. What I've noticed, they have little things on or something that says something, and I'm like, oh, he's probably a Christian if he has an I Love Jesus hat on or something. And so it kind of got me thinking, like, damn, like it's really hard to find local community of black people that are also non-believers. And I I thought that part of this show is it's been so great to do that online. It's been great to do that through YouTube and the different channels and meet each other and make friends. But I feel like part of what we could talk about in a space like this is just how hard it is to do that outside of a space like this. And so, yeah, I just don't know where y'all are at with that. But for me, it felt like one, I guess the two things I'm thinking right now. One is it feels like something I have to think strategically about. Like it's not something that's going to happen automatically. I'm going to have to come up with some kind of game plan and go out of my way to try to make this happen. And then I've also just been thinking about the compartmentalization, how sometimes it's hard enough to find black community. I felt like for me, moving back home, moving back to the East Coast, being near Newark and stuff like that makes it a lot easier. Maybe for somebody like Maya, Baltimore. I don't know exactly where you at, Darante.
Alabama.
Yeah, so it depends on where you at. That's not necessarily easy. And then when I look even into a lot of local atheist groups, they're just white. There's no other way to put it. There's really like, they have their group photos or whatever, and it's not a single person of color in the whole thing. And so that's what it feels like. It's extra challenging, right? Because it's hard to do both those things, and then you're supposed to put them together somehow, and it's like, I don't know, man. It's rough out here.
Yeah.
So Alabama, I know, is deep. Every map I look at is like deeply religious. I know you probably know more deconverted pastors than I knew were even out there, but like, are there any in your area or?
Let's see. There are a few, because we have a few Universalist churches sprinkled throughout the state. But by far and large, when it comes to the black pastors, not as much, because even again, the Universalists, Unitarians, they're primarily on the Caucasian persuasion. But I do run into quite a few millennials who are non-believers in the area, who just don't go to church at all. They just don't know what they think about God at all. And I think that I think it's kind of appropriate to the point, because the thing that they do know is that they don't want any part of church because of what they've seen church do to other people. They're interested in exploring the possibility of whatever, but they have not found any safe spaces to do it. And then, so I will add to that caveat that I think that's sometimes even the downfall of secular community, which is why I do kind of advocate for people like Houston Oasis and Sunday Assembly, is that our idea of community just becomes a hangout session. And so then when you have people who have real questions that they're trying to actually explore, the only place that exists for them to do that is church. And church just so happens to be the most restrictive place to do it at.
Right.
And so then they're kind of like stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
There's a lot there. Like one thing I'm thinking of, it almost feels like part of the opportunity is maybe to cultivate more community with Black non-believers by, you know, like being a little bit more active with people who were just not invested in the church. I think so much of my thought is towards the typical atheist that I run into, and a lot of times it's deconvert. So you're thinking of people who were religious and are now not religious. And sometimes when I run into people who are like not interested, I tend to think like, oh, you know, they don't care. They're not going to want to, you know, but hey, not interested. Like, let's talk about it. Like, you know, there might be a lot to that, because I do think there's a lot of people who are not religious, but have never really thought about the fact that they're not religious.
Yeah.
For sure.
And nobody else has ever approached them and treated them not being religious as though that was important.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think that kind of goes just to options. You know, I kind of make this funny joke. It's a little crass, but it's funny, and it's accurate. And it's just that the fact that when I was growing up, if somebody say that they ate booty, we'd pick at them. Like you'd get picked at. Like that's like something we talk about you bad about. But because that word has, that phraseology, that action, that behavior, that practice has entered into our zeitgeist through music and through media, people who would have 10 years ago said, oh no, that's disgusting, are like, oh, would I do that? And I use that as an extreme because it's an example that we would all have a reaction to. You're going to have an immediate reaction to that. And that same type of reaction is sometimes what people have to atheism, is what people have to secularism. But I think the more it enters into the zeitgeist, the more that we talk about it, the more that it exists as an option, the more that people see, oh, hey, this is a place I can go and I can talk about things and work on things and do personal development and all that stuff, and never have to petition the supernatural deity. And if I have some questions about that, then there's also a community there for me to talk to. When people know that's an option, then just like booty eating, all of a sudden it becomes more palatable for people.
Yeah. Atheism is just like eating booty, y'all. If you don't remember anything else from this episode, Maya, what do you think about the idea of like getting into it more in our spaces? Because I feel like with parts of your social identity that are tough to find people to relate to, there is a balance, because you want to explore those things and get into those things, but you also just want to find friends and people to hang out with. Like I found that very difficult when I ran like a marijuana organization when I was in college, right? Like, the National Organization for Reform Marijuana Laws, right? So the extensive goal is to change the marijuana laws, right? And I have to try to remind people like that's what we're here to do. So, you know, there's like things I want to get into, but a lot of people that would sign up for the club, they were there just to meet other potheads.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was literally like a real tension, because I don't want to come down on that stuff too hard, or else I'm gonna lose recruitment, and you know nobody's gonna want to be a part of this. But at the same time, when we get together, I don't want us just sitting around smoking weed. We could do that on our own time. When we get together, we should be, you know, organizing our events and understanding what's going on in the lay of the land. So it is. So I just use that as an example.
It's not a hookah bar.
Good one. Yeah.
But I can imagine the same thing with like trying to meet up with some atheist friends, right?
Yep. It just becomes a hangout. It just becomes a place where we come and we're friends. It's like an atheist club, but we're not invested in any outcomes at that moment. We're We're not connected to this idea of being more visible. And it's those are the things that really build community. You know, I think the difference between a hood and a neighborhood is that, you know, we're all hanging out together, but what are we working on together? And that's the thing about community. And it's just like, it's nice that we want to know each other, but someone has to take that a step further and says, well, there's people on the outside who have not made that step yet. Who's going to be willing to start thinking about ways that would make it easier for them to make that step? Kind of using the old Field of Dreams analogy. If you build it, they will come. Now, surely it's not that simple, but the thing is, we can't expect people to go to places that don't exist. We can't expect people to leave the comfort of community and just say, and I think we just talked about this in our past Sunday sessions, because it's almost like, I want you to change your mind for my pleasure without doing anything to really mitigate the fact that when you do change your mind, you might be losing your family. You might be losing your professional network. You might be losing any sense of encouragement you have. So it's literally like, I want you to change your mind so I'll feel better about you, but I don't give a damn what happens to you after that. And people can see that, they can feel that, until there are options out here where you say, okay, you're presenting me this information and telling me that what I believe is a lie. How do I live after this? And who in your community is even invested in that? And that becomes the fear for a lot of Black non-believers, is that when they see non-believers, even though the language is sometimes socialism and communism, the behavior is never community. And so what they know is, if I do join your ranks, I'm still out here on my own, except for when I come to your events and take pictures. Sorry.
No, that's fantastic. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I don't know how to contribute to this, because I don't know. People, I'm such an introvert. People exhaust me.
People are exhausting.
My whole job is talking to people all day. I'm really not thinking about it nights or weekends. So, like, you know, outreach isn't like on my radar. So when I saw this, I'm just like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, my whole thing is like how to manage people when they're in front of me, like mentally. It's just it's taxing.
So here's a question: Have you given up on the idea? Like, do you think it'd be cool? Like, would you think it'd be cool, like, if there was a group of, you know, professional women your age in Baltimore that you could just kick it with, that were not churchy, that just, you know what I mean, like, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, I was looking for stuff like that. I was what do you call it? I met a lot of my friends through meetup groups in my late 20s, early 30s. I was part of a separation of church and state group at one point. Well, before everything fell apart after COVID.
Sure.
And yeah, I found all those groups through meetup. So I don't know, it's kind of getting lazy in my old age, I guess. But I really like the online. I probably, maybe it's being here that's been kind of making me lazy, because I feel like I get fulfilled online, where I can come, I can communicate via text. It's not like physically exhausting, or like talking for me is physically exhausting. It's not as mentally taxing, because like I can look at a text, I can process it, think of something thoughtful, and reply in a meaningful way. I feel like when people ask me questions in person, I feel like I'm on the spot to say something back timely, and which sometimes gives me tongue-tied. You know, I feel like I feel like online I'm just a better version of myself. I'm more relaxed and, you know, more thorough. And when I can also kind of see what's going on, because there's more people online, you know, you get more than just like people in your immediate community. We have people all over the world here in the chat right now, you know, and I've learned so much. It's brought me a wider variety, like a more diverse group of friends. And which I personally feel is better.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, I am more reluctant, I think, now for all of these reasons to go out to find community within my community than I am the online community anymore. So.
Yeah, I think it's weird because I'm kind of in a similar spot where I think I love having community online, and it's definitely carried me through a lot of difficult times, and I don't really feel like I don't feel like it's deficient in any way like a lot of people
Right.
do.
Yeah.
But I do feel like, and it's for me, I think maybe too, like I was definitely locked down and isolated a lot longer than most people. So it's 2024, and like actually doing things with other human beings in person is like a new experience to me. I'm like, wow, this is what, like I went to a concert for the first time over the weekend. I actually went to two this weekend.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
I told the person I went, I literally have not been to a concert since COVID started. But so it just, there's so many of those experiences where it's like, oh, I wish the gang could be here with me, so we could do these things, physically together. And so when I was preparing for today, I was like, no, this is kind of like, cutting that off for a little bit and saying like, we all do still exist locally somewhere, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And unfortunately we can't be together locally, but we still have that need, right, to just feel loved by people that are in your
Yep.
life, feel like there's people you could talk to that are in your real life. And I'm realizing, okay, like I'm having people in my life again, and that's great, but I really don't feel like I belong. And
Yeah.
it really does feel alienating to be surrounded by people who still entertain these things or who still feel this way, not out of the sense of like an animosity, but just a literal, I don't feel there's people I can relate to. I feel like when they say things that don't make sense to me, and if I really spoke how I really felt, it would be crazy to them. And then I've realized too that like being part of this internet community, which I think is like a special breed of online culture, you get it online, and online could take you a lot of different ways. But you talked about having a more diverse group of friends,
Yeah.
having a kind of intelligent community and things like that. That's different than going down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole. But I realize it makes us very different because now I'll talk to people and they say stuff and I'm like, you're definitely not an online person because
right. You can tell.
like, woo, like, it
No, I mean, just like little things, like when I was
crazy.
talking about like, this I in a professional setting, I was like, and your argument is, oh, I'm not trying to argue. And I'm like, no, you're making an argument. No, I'm not arguing. And I'm like, oh, holy crap. Like, do we really have to go back to grade school for this?
Yeah.
I mean, just like, little things that I am used to
Yeah.
where it's just like, all right, I got to pull back.
Yes.
Where's your level? Because I'm not on it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I can definitely relate to that. It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, and I think COVID, a lot of people found community online through COVID. So I think it's sadly some of them are anti-vax, which was unfortunate, but I learned everything I learned about vaccines and like just being healthy and why things are important, like all my like medical knowledge. I can't say all of it. I mean, I was working in a hospital, so I did ask a fair amount of like doctors and nurses, but it was encouraging that the public health officials that I was working with online and also talking to in person were all saying the same thing, and it really helped me to be able to have conversations with staff and people in my family to where I feel like I'm like I've been a help to my community, and I know for a fact that I've been I was the motivating factor for people to get, vaccinated and to practice being more safe. And that was, strongly through a lot of the relationships that I formed online and from people. I was in, I didn't have a channel at the time, but I followed people with channels, and they were dedicating themselves to educating their followers. And I'm very thankful for that. A lot of people, I would talk to people like my kid's school would have forums online, and we're going to tell you everything you need to know. We're going to have these experts from the health department or whatever, and 12 people would show, because when people weren't in the school, they're passing up flyers. Like, a lot of people didn't know. And a lot of people didn't know where to go or how to get the information. When I'm reading articles, a lot of people were in the hospital and, oh, we didn't think it was that serious. Did you ask your doctor? Didn't even occur to them.
Mm-mm.
So, I mean, I know a lot of people, they look down on people for like using their phones and being online, but it really is a wealth of information and resources. If you, it's almost like, you have to know though. It's kind of crazy.
So one of the best experiences I've ever had was I met a Black woman in Michigan, because that didn't happen very often on a dating app. And we ended up not dating, but she was, I want to say, like literally like mid deconversion, like having a, like, what I think when we first met was like she would describe like a crisis of faith that she was in the middle of. And I think on the other side of it, like, realize, okay, like I'm definitely an atheist and it's gonna be okay. And I felt like I was like really there for this person, because this was like probably like right before I started doing the stuff on my channel. It was kind of one of the motivating things that got me to like be like, okay, I should be doing this on my channel, because I was like, oh, I'm like up for this, and I was like ready for those conversations, and I like had resources to point them to, and I was like, I'm good at this. Like I can do this. I can like help other people, not have to go through this alone, and not feel like they're crazy. And it was really interesting because she ended up working with somebody I ended up actually dating in the future, and she told my future girlfriend wonderful things about me because she was like, he was so great, he really helped me. So that like really was a huge confidence boost for me. But it's been challenging, I would say, to find other people, other non-believers in person, like in my real life, especially Black non-believers. So that was like such a motivating experience for me. I haven't had many of them since, and it's really tough. But one other thing you got me thinking of, Darante, with the whole community thing, and what made me think of her too was I sometimes think about pulling people out of religion, because that's what I really want to do. I want to
know.
I want to forcefully yank them out of religion. But of course people like resist that. And I don't think we do enough, and certainly not I do enough to like do more of the, well, I'm here for you. Like,
Yeah.
because it does start, I think, even a lot of times in the other direction, is that one person that invites them to church, and then we'll go out to lunch with them. And how many people are in churches now because it was something they had to do with their girlfriend on a weekend, or somebody they were dating at the time, or whatever. They allowed that one person to be the bridge to like pull them into that community. And we could do the same thing for people who are, asking questions, or
Yes.
somewhere in the deconstruction zone, to let them know that they have somebody in their life that can really be there for them.
I think what the secular community could benefit from is we all know very well what the church is doing that is harmful. I think we need to acclimate ourselves with why it's harmful and why it's so misleading. But then once we do that, we actually need to interrogate what is actually attractive about the church, especially when you consider that the amount of people who are, and this is from a former pastor's perspective, that the amount of people who are sitting in church on Sunday morning are not believers. Now, if you asked them if they were believers, they would say so. But just because a person says they are a thing does not mean that they meet the qualities to be defined as a thing.
Sure.
And so if you actually ask those pastors, most pastors will tell you that 80% of their members are not saved and are not living according to any religious affiliation whatsoever. So they're not coming for the fairy tale. And that's what the secular community needs to really investigate. What are they coming for? Well, there are a few things. You can start with the superficial. They're coming for a free concert. You get a free concert, free childcare for a little bit. You get some time to think. And most importantly, where else can you go weekly where the people are focused on giving you a message that's about you living your best life? You can't get that at work. You're not going to get that hanging out at the bar. You're not going to get that going to the football game. And that's the stuff that the secular community is missing. The church is not a spiritual institution, especially for those of us who understand that spiritual is a word for people who don't. Spiritual is a word that people use to fill in the blanks for the question marks that they're not willing to understand. There is no spiritual phenomenon. All phenomenon is that I've seen that people call spiritual is sociological, psychological, and neurological. And they are going to church for those experiences. And there is no need for supernaturalism. There is no need for deity. There is no need for doctrine to create those experiences for people. They are going because that's the only place they can go in a week where when they walk through the doors, somebody's going to say, I love you, that I was thinking about you, that you were on my mind. It's the only place they can go where their value is not attached to what they did at work that week or what they brought home or who, or how they led the family. That's the place that they can go where you're loved. And it amazes me that the secular community, where many of us identify as humanists, don't understand those human needs. That's the attachment. If we know that God is not real, or if we claim that God is not real, then we should also be willing to think that then God is not the pull. It is a very human thing that is pulling them into those places. And I think we need to spend more time interrogating those things and actually asking ourselves, well, why aren't we doing this? Especially if we're better equipped to fill in those question marks. Because then when someone has something, when someone's singing Mariah Carey, we won't say that's the Holy Spirit. We can actually tell you that that's the oxytocin, that's these endorphins that you're responding to. And then that also helps people boost their own mental health, because then they understand this is not something I need a God for. So anytime I'm feeling a little anxious at home, I might just be able to sing myself happy, not because of some supernatural event, but these are the things that I've learned. These are the things that we've learned just by socializing together. The church could have been a beautiful place if it had not been for superstition, because it is literally an experimental lab for sociology, psychology, and neuroscience. That's what community is. We get all of those practices. I mean, you can just imagine if neurosciences were in a charismatic church service, if they can just go put one of them things on your head to see what the hell is going on. But I mean, by the same token, just at any concert, or any motivational speaking conference. But we have to be, someone has to be motivated for that, though. There has to be people who are like, okay, I care about more than just having a place for me, because I realize how hard it is for me. Let me think about how hard it is for others. And do I really like if I'm a capable human being, I may not be the best thing since sliced bread, but damn, I can do something. But that's the thing, everybody's willing to find a community. But when it comes to finding people who are willing to collaborate to build a community, that's the hard part, because that's a scary thing. Because number one, the church created a barrier of entry where you had to be called, you had to be anointed for these things. And it's just nah, man, you just got to have an idea and be willing to try it, and I was gonna cuss, but I pulled it back. But but yeah, it takes people who are passionate, whose passion moves just beyond themselves, but because of themselves. It's just like, no, I'm passionate about this because I want this. I want to have a place, and that's kind of like where you are, Jay. Now it's just like, no, I want to be able to chill with people. I want to be able to talk about people. But then you also said, like, no, it's a value issue as well, because that's the real thing. When we are isolated from community, we begin to doubt ourselves. You can have all of this information and be like, no, I'm good. I think, I'm accurate. I'm perceiving the world in truth. But when loneliness starts creeping in, like, you're like, well, maybe I'm willing to just go back just a little bit, just to have people around me, because we're social creatures.
Yeah. And I think that is on so many fronts. I think it's a real issue. Physically, like you talked about being a social species. What just happened? Oh my goodness! I'll be back. Darante, take over.
I was just like, what happened?
Oh man!
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Stuff happens. No, that's an interesting way to put it, because I never really thought about it like that. Born and raised Catholic. We come out and slide right into the whole, like the baptismal waters, And I went to 12 years of Catholic school, and I started in a Catholic preschool. I did church because it was commanded. Like it's what you do. It wasn't not an option.
Right.
And so by the time I reached adulthood, it was just like, well, God's mad at you if you don't go to church. So you got to go.
Yeah.
I don't know. For me, I don't know. God is kind of smitey. You don't want to rock the boat.
He is smitey. Definitely smitey.
If an hour makes him gets him off your back, like just go say hi. Like, throw the 20 in the basket. You get to walk away.
Yep.
Never.
But you know what? Like I think even in that, I think you just highlighted the two main things that makes us primarily resistant to doing community once we've deconstructed. It's that bathwater. It's remembering and almost being afraid of that, if we do this, then someone's going to be on my back to be here every week. And then if I'm not, someone's going to be accusing me of not loving the people. And then it's also that adage, well, eventually we're going to start needing to raise money. And so then it becomes, what's the difference between this and the thing that I left? And I think that's the biggest conversation that probably needs to be had. But I think a lot of people are afraid of having it. But I think that's it. It's like, I think we're afraid of community because we're afraid of creating anything that becomes hierarchical. We're afraid of creating anything that becomes compulsory. And that's why it becomes so much easier for us to just create hangout sessions, But I think it's going to require a lot of conversation. I think the thing I always tell people is, then don't do anything that you saw in church. Just experiment with whatever you and your group of people think works. And then if it doesn't work, you'll know. And then if it does work, you'll know. Because that's the scientific method. That's the only way and I think that's how we have to approach it. Nobody has the blueprint. And the thing that I've learned after 20 years of working with various churches is that none of them looked alike, because all of them are shaped by the people who are part of shaping them. Right. And I think that's the thing we have to remember if we do take on that idea to build community, is that your community, the thing that you do locally, doesn't have to look like anybody else's. Right. It doesn't have to cater to anybody else's standards. It can be organized any way you want to organize it. Just get out there and try something and see what happens,
Right. And I was having a conversation with my guest last night where a lot of times we have to look internally too. I've been really big on keeping. I don't know. What I would like to do is grow the diversity within our community.
Yes.
And I've noticed, like, I've been in the community for about 6 or 7 years now, and I've noticed that women have a way of like kind of floating through. And men have an issue with just like, I don't know where all the women are, or why women don't want to come over here. And like they do. And I'm not putting it 100% on the men. I understand that the women are being turned off. One, it's like they're not really finding their niche in the community. And two, it really is a pretty heavy-handed sausage fest.
Yep.
You know, and I'm not, God, it's gonna sound like I'm blaming you. I'm not necessarily trying to blame you. I understand it's just ignorance. Like, you don't know what's going on in the mind of a woman.
Yeah.
And women, I'm not trying to victim blame. I know it's really hard saying, hey, I'm uncomfortable. Could you just not? Which is a little bit why I've been so vocal about being vocal, and why I've been so vocal when I stand with other communities, because I know that there are a lot of people who have been brought up and raised to just get along to get along. And there's a kind of, it feels like a moral quandary if you're the only one speaking out against something. It's like, well, if I'm the only one that has a problem, clearly it's my problem. And what you do is you select out. And a lot of people that have selected out are still, we'll say a lot, all of them are still human, and all of them still crave community, because that's, we are social creatures.
Yeah.
I have heard of so many people who've gone back to religion because that's where they find community. And, you know, they'll be, well, maybe I'll just be a liberal Christian, but, you know, this is where my tribe is, and I don't want to give that up. And it's not, and people will laugh at them, but this is human nature. And I don't think that people really understand that. We have to, a lot of like the reason I do the social things I do is so that people understand that they do have community, that we can start to partner, like even if it's not with me, that we start finding like these partnerships, where people can find their community, you know, and kind of gravitate towards that. We, you know,
absolutely.
And I do notice that, you know, when they're, you know, somebody comes out of the closet, you know, there's a big, you know, LGBT community that, you know, gravitates toward them. I would like to see that a little bit stronger for the Black community. And I would like to see it a little bit stronger for the women in the community.
Yeah.
But I do want to reach out and thank the men for, you know, the efforts that they have made to adjust. Just for little things, you know, like when Roe went down, a lot of us saw a lot of just panels of straight white men talking about how horrible this is. And I was like, you know, I don't want to say, okay, you don't have a vagina, so you shouldn't have an opinion. Abortion affects straight men. If 3/4 of the women having abortions in this community, or in the community in America, already have children, like you're pregnant, and most states aren't paying for your pregnancy. You may be going to your family. You're probably having these conversations with the father. Men are making these decisions. Abortion is a man's issue too. It's a woman's health issue, 100%.
100%.
But it doesn't. It's not like it doesn't affect the man.
Thank you for that nuance. You know, a lot of people don't highlight that. Like that's real and raw.
Yeah, but that's not if that's the angle the men were taking it from, that would be great. But and thank you for championing women. But I feel like there needed to be at least one on the panel. You can't tell me that, of all the people, you could only find 5 men to have this conversation. or that you couldn't have waited one day, to free up a woman from her time. Like, okay, I can't do it today. I can do it tomorrow. Can you do tomorrow? Or when can we get together? Because it's probably important that one person without a penis be there.
Makes sense to me.
And when enough of us said it, I started seeing the invites. I started seeing, the men stepping up. And I do want to say to the men, we see you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, and I think that's the thing. But the thing was, I understand in their mind, they felt like they were hoping. And it was, well, we want to show our support for you. And we're speaking on your behalf. This is what, everything that we've read, this is what it's saying we should say. And I'm not saying that anybody was wrong. It's just it.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah. Ugh. It's just, I don't even want to say it's a bad look. It's just, you're sidelining us.
Well, yeah.
To not even reach out to ask.
Yep.
You're doing the thing, right? And that was the issue. And again, I know they didn't see it, but and when they did, they said, "Oh, okay, we understand, and we can do that." And they did that. And if there wasn't any other woman in the community that has said it, I want to say it.
Yeah,
I saw you, and I appreciate the effort. And I've seen it with so many other things, so many other issues, whether, I've seen white people step up for the Black people, especially during BLM. I've seen white people step up for trans people, for gay people. I've heard people say, we would love to see the natives in the communities speak out more. The Hispanics in the community speak out more. Because because of all the money and the bitching that the women and the Black people and the trans people did, we understand that we need to hear from you. We don't just want to, we don't want to speak for you.
Right.
And, we hear you. We're thankful. And I don't want, there's been no movement in America that has been successful without cishet straight white men. I don't want you to stop talking. I just want, I want it to be more inclusive. And so I say all this to say, we as a community need to look like in those ways. We need to be aware of our bias and our privileges and our blind spots.
Yes.
So that we're making available spaces for people who want to be here, that we're not alienating and sending into the arms of, perhaps those people that they'd rather not. They have community here. We need to show that.
Yeah.
And it's not an us versus them. It's not a Christian, an atheist versus Christian thing. But if you don't want to be, like, you made a conscious decision to not be in a church, if you're just not feeling welcomed, I feel like that's our community. Like, I feel like we need to hold on. We need to recognize that we're failing there. And I think that we, self-included, need to step up in those ways, to look up and, where have you been? I've missed you. Like, what do you need from me? And again, like, even there have been so many times when people are just like, I'm feeling this way. There've been so many times when I've sent out DMs, like, have you seen this person? I'm concerned about them.
Yeah.
There've been so many times when I'm just like, come together. You have community.
It's a wellness check. It's like a wellness check. I was worried about PC the other day with the tornado or whatever. When that
people were checking for you.
That's beautiful.
It was crazy.
Yeah. And that's where we need to be with everybody. Have you seen such and such in a while? Like, this is, I don't know what to tell you about your IRL communities, but I know for this community, I know I'm pretty in tune with what our strengths is, what our weaknesses are, and where we have room to grow. And I love everybody. I want you to keep doing what you do. I just want you to be kind of broaden your scope a little bit. But I'm not asking you to do anything you're uncomfortable with. Just work within our strengths.
So part of this is, in a sense, motivated by community envy.
Yeah, I like that.
I see. First of all, I think it's really difficult to deconvert. I used to say that it's kind of corny. I used to say I'm more proud of the fact that I deconverted than that I got a dual PhD. I just think it's far more of an accomplishment to leave a religion, especially after being that heavily indoctrinated into it.
Sure.
But it does feel like there's a lot of resources and community stuff out there for atheists, for non-believers, but those spaces don't often include people of color. And so I think it's important that even if you're not a person of color, that you think about that, because hopefully that might have you moving a bit differently. Like, like I'm sometimes disappointed when I see pictures and things from people I went to high school with, where I was like the only black kid in my high school, and there's no black people in any of their pictures.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, was I just like a one and done? There was a black kid in my class in high school, and now I'm good. Like I would hope I'll be a lot more pleased if I saw that you now have diverse friends, because you learned something about what diversity brings. And I really feel like, oh, y'all would have just been happy if I never showed up, and if y'all never just don't ever have a black friend. Like, that's cool with y'all. And I'm like, why is that okay to people? Like, why do people think that's okay, that you create a community, you create a welcoming space for, you recognize, oh my goodness, it's so hard to leave a religion, and people don't have community, and you organize and you have all these events, and you look around this room and we're not there, and nobody notices that. Like, it would help us build community, because one, I think people, they would do things to include us, right? And they would do more outreach. And then people, even black people who didn't think that it was common or okay to be a black non-believer, they'd be like, oh, I met these friendly atheists. They invited me to their pizza party or whatever it is, right? And they could start to think about it. And then they could think about how to support more of that. Okay, I'm not black. We may not have a lot of black members, but hey, maybe we could reach out to some other black folks and have them come speak, or, we could try to do things that are more diverse communities. That way we just get different type of people walking by, different type of street exposure. Like, just because you're not a black free thinker doesn't mean you can't do anything to help us build this community where you're at, and I think, to a large extent, that's what Skeptic Haven is trying to do. They realized they had a platform and an organization, and why not give us a space and see what we can do with it. And we definitely appreciate that. But yeah, I don't want to make it seem like this isn't something everybody can be a part of. I definitely think it is.
For sure. I know one of the things that I try to remind people to do in any context, when you're the majority in any context, because the dynamics can change from organization to organization, is to always kind of be mindful of those gravitational phenomenons, to where if you just get used to seeing you all day, every day, people who look like you, act like you get locked into an echo chamber. And that echo chamber can make anybody who does not look like you, think like you, act like you, feel uncomfortable. So whether you're in a context where you're a majority male, you're in a context where you're a majority black, majority white, majority anything, when you're the majority, and I think that's one of the beautiful things I like about contemporary society, is that we're starting to become more mindful of mindfulness. Just realizing that sometimes that even when we have good intentions, we don't have good actions. You can have good intentions and still not be intentional. And that's often the problems. It's like, well, no, we invited you in. And it's like, but I don't think you thought about what the barriers really look like here. You know what I'm saying? So when you invited me in, y'all just continue business as usual. And so I'm just standing here in the corner. I don't even know what to say. You didn't actually make room for me. And part of that may be you were expecting me to make room for myself. Maybe you were expecting me to mansplain y'all or whatever else. I don't know. But at the same time, to have that expectation of me is to overlook the harm that would have costed me at any, like, not just 50 years before, just 10 years ago, just yesterday, hell, it could be today. You never know when somebody wants to act a fool on you and say, hey, you had too much of an attitude today, so you're one of the uppity ones and we're going to have to let you go. It happens.
But no, that's the reality too. And I do think for a lot of people, they think of DEI and they think inclusion and they think invite and then we're good. And I just think that's part of the myth of it, is not understanding that really diversity is about different perspectives, and the people are going to bring a different perspective, and they're going to bring up some things you didn't think about. Like, there's certain things I can tell, like at the institution I'm at, that not being used to having people of color on faculty, there's things they haven't thought about. You know what I'm saying? So, for instance, like, there's a little bit of, let's just say, laxity in some of our teaching labs. And, I'm like, look, for most of our students, they're planning to go somewhere else. They're planning to go to grad school. They plan to go to med school. And particularly for students of color, you have to make sure they understand the basics. Because if they go to grad school at a major university and they come into the lab and they don't have good habits as far as just cleanliness and what's expected and how to label things and how to just be a professional in the lab, then people are going to think they're lazy. People are going to think they're sloppy. People are going to think they don't care, right? Then they're going to feel some type of way when people have to teach them these things. That's going to contribute towards the imposter syndrome. See, when you brought on a Black faculty member, you wasn't thinking, oh, you know, bitch about what's going on in the lab. It's going to affect how students deal, 5 and 2 years down the line. But when I see it, that's what I see. Y'all not thinking about that. You see what I'm saying? So,
well, and a lot of it, I mean, it's not enough to be diverse. If you are just focused on diversity, you're going to have you will have problems.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
It just will happen. You have to focus on the inclusivity, being inclusive. And what does that mean? What does it mean bringing these people together? Because you're having two cultures, and people are, be it right or wrong, are used to what they're used to. People don't like change, especially in the workplace. And I mean, I think a lot of your job just takes up so much of your mental. Certainly not everybody, but like, most jobs do take a lot of like mental ability. And it's like, oh, and now this too. Now I have to be, now I have to focus on doing this or not doing this or saying this and not saying this because it's rude. And I just came here to do my job and make a buck. And why are you making me do this? And especially if I've been here for a period of time and I've never had to before, this is something that you're doing to me. And as an employer, these are all things that we have to get used to. Like that, as an employer, when you're introducing something into the workplace, you have to think about all the ways. And it doesn't even matter if it's like, okay, well, Jay's first Black professor in the biology department. So how is this going to affect things? We need to talk to Jay. What's Jay used to? Okay, well, we should ostensibly know what our current faculty is used to. So now we have to set expectations. This is how things are going to be different. This is, And it doesn't really matter if it's introducing a Black man to a bunch of white men who've never had to deal with a Black man, or whether it's everybody's had to be introduced to a new system, right?
Yep.
Like we had that system, now we're doing this system, and it's like all the crying and the hand holding and the call outs. Just too much. It's all the same thing. It's all people not liking change, and people act like diversity is different, and it's not. Honestly.
Right. Yeah.
It's just introducing a new system. Now, for me, I don't know. As an employer, I can threaten you, like you have to get along with Jay, or like it's for a lot of jobs, and it's just like, don't make me tell you you're replaceable. I don't want to have to go there.
Right.
I want to keep you. Can you just act like an adult?
Right.
But when we're talking about our friends, it looks different, there have been times, especially this year, when I don't believe that anybody in the community is replaceable. I honestly, I don't believe that. Yeah. But there are actions that we can't allow to stay in the community.
Yeah.
If our goal is to be, like, to stay together.
Yeah.
And, these are values that we're going to have to come together on and be committed to. And inclusivity has got to be one of those. If your goal is to be a community. Yep. So, yeah, it's introducing a new system.
And I just like that you hit the aspect of the values part, because I mean that's really the difference between incidental community and intentional community.
Right.
Incidental community is built around convenience, and that's kind of what you were hitting at earlier, Jay. With these people were just my friends because I just so happened to be at the school that they went to, because we're creatures of convenience. But when you're when you're doing intentional community, and I think that's something we all have to realize that we're not good at. We're just, the majority of us, the people we have in our lives are in our lives solely because of convenience. We want to believe that, no, I picked these people. But it's like, nope, I was born into this family. I went to this school. I worked on this job. This is where I met these people at. I did not necessarily go out of my way to find these people. And that's what intentional community is. Intentional community is going out of your way to find people who identify with your values, and then building a nucleus, and then building a membrane around that thing. And then, depending on how passionate your value is, you make it bigger and bigger and bigger. But that really becomes the thing, and I think that likely probably doesn't get platformed enough because we're afraid of offending each other, because likely we are going to have some different values, but we need to have the conversation more and more and more so we can hone in. What are the top 3? What are the top 4 that are just like undeniable for us? You know what I'm saying? And nothing happens until we're intentional about having those conversations for those outcomes, to say, once we've identified this, we're going to build around this. We're going to build a nucleus around this, and we're going to go for it,
Yeah. Yeah, it's there's a lot there. I have some bad habits too, because I'm realizing, like, when somebody thinks differently than I do very much have the inclination to shut them off. I really do. Like, I always see the dating profiles when I'm on Tinder, and women are like, if you're a Trump supporter, swipe left. That's how I am with a lot of things. If you if you have certain ideas, I'm just swipe left. I don't really need to speak to you. But that's not really helping people get outside their bubble.
Yeah.
It's like cutting them off and ostracizing them because they didn't show up right to begin with, acting like we showed up right to begin with.
Well, but there's some nuance there, because I think because I know because we all want to be better, right? And it's like I don't want to feel like I'm cutting anybody off. And I think that's become a part of the language, but that's not always the case. Sometimes the case is I'm just realizing that we're probably going to aggravate the fuck out of each other.
Oh, there's definitely
And
that.
you know what I'm
for
saying?
sure.
And they're probably going to be just as aggravated too. And so it's realizing that on these issues we don't convene, and so we're probably not gonna we're not going to be in the same particular community, but maybe you build your local community over there and you build your local community over here, and on the issues that we converge on, that's where we can come together. Exactly. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know,
everybody can come to my channel. You don't like somebody, just
yes.
welcome. You understand?
So one of the other things you talked about, LaMar, I wanted to talk about was the church thing. So for me, church is actually, when I worked at a church, is when I was really introduced to intentional community. That was one thing I will always think, church does really well. And a big part of it is showing up. I remember I worked on a staff at a church, and there's a team of, sort of younger adults that were leading at that time. So we were all probably somewhere between 20 and 25. And there was a lot of times you didn't necessarily feel like hanging with the gang or going to dinner, or certainly wanted to skip some of the Bible studies. But you learned that it was important to show up for your group and show up for your relationships, and that you wouldn't build them without them. And it really does pay off. But you have to be there. I've been a part of other groups I've formed recently where, everyone's just very casual about whether or not we actually do the thing. And eventually you just stop doing it because
that's it.
Eventually everybody's got a reason to do something else. So it is important to really show up for each other. And the other thing I was thinking about is sometimes I think coming out of church, coming out of faith, we don't want to do anything that looks or feels like church. And I think that can be a bit too much. And I see that not just in wanting to do things that sound or feel too much like church, but also just in even taking strong stances. I think this is why we have like an enlightened centrist problem in the atheist community. I think after people came out of such extreme thinking, they like avoid that. And so now it's almost like, well, I don't want to commit to anything. I don't want to have too strong of an idea one way or the other. And I just think people need to work through that. Like, leaving that previous idea behind doesn't mean you don't have values anymore. It doesn't mean you don't take stances anymore. It doesn't mean certain things aren't still very important to you. You just have to like work through it again.
Yep. And I think, or at least from my perspective, and y'all know community is kind of like my language. I think that's what people want. I think that's the real thing. Like we create a lot of spaces for a lot of different types of conversations. And it's those most personal conversations that people used to have at church. Again, even though they were still limited. And it's, church was so much more than the Sunday service. People had their little women's groups, their men's groups, their teens groups, their little cooking groups, just all different types of groups. And those people formed bonds where they talked about a lot more than just Jesus. You know what I'm saying? And that's what, again, that's kind of going back to that aspect that to me, church, if you strip it of the lingo, especially the modern church, it's a community center that focuses on personal development. And then when you look at it that way, you see it's an incredibly effective model, because when you compare, you can have one city with several churches that all have recreational centers, that all have stores, that all employ several people, that all have schools, whether it's just pre-K or K through 12 on that site. And then you go look at the city-funded community center, and it looks like it hasn't been updated in 10, 15, 20 years. Wow. That's how effective that model is. You know what I'm saying? And so, but it's not effective just because of the doctrine. The churches that are truly just focused on the doctrine are the small churches. They're the little backwoods churches. Those big churches are focusing on the needs of people. They're focusing on the psychology of people. They're focusing on what drives people. Go ahead.
And you have to remember, like, those are the types of churches that you're talking about that had that socialistic foundation, that structure, that when we're looking at like how do we get from slavery to like these thriving metropolises 30, 40 years later that got burnt down, bombed, flooded. That was through that community. And it, like you said, it started at the church, but it wasn't just the church. The church was that nucleus that gave people, that's where everybody convened.
Yes.
And then it branched out. It's like, okay, well, you're good with this. So, go, you're going to get the corner store. You're going to go, you're going to be the teachers. You guys are going to be the builders of the schools, of the homes. You guys are going to be the farmers, and you're going to be the tailors, the seamstresses. Like everybody had a job. It was a very socialistic culture.
Yes.
It was very easy to thrive in that type of environment. The things that we're now, there, no one was really left behind in that environment.
Yes.
And it's the structure that democratic socialists are now trying to get back to, but that they did through a church. Doesn't have to be through a church, but yeah, that was a structure that they supported. There was no child or adult left behind. Everybody either had their place, and those that couldn't work had support.
Yeah, well, because all of the auxiliaries exist for the needs of the community.
Exactly.
Instead of you having to come and beg for somebody, can y'all please do this for me? Can y'all please do this for me? That church as a nucleus served as a place where the community can come and say, hey, we need this. We would like to see this. Or someone says, hey, I want to do this. And then that community would work together to create that space. And those are the principles that we often don't, platform. That's collaborative work and cooperative economics.
Yes.
And that's what made that system profound. And even today, that's what allows them to feed the homeless. That's what allows them to start orphanages. And, the Catholic Church has something called Boys Town, which is absolutely phenomenal, where they build these, 2- and 3-story houses in a insulated community where they take troubled children and then pay a parent couple to come in and parent those children while they're there, so that those children don't have to feel like they're in prison. And it's just like, that's the power of community. No one person is going to be able to do that. No one group is going to be able to make that happen. But if people in the secular community start getting passionate about just building community wherever you are, and even if you are building online community is an excellent strategy to building in real life community, because then you get to build a workbook of where people are. You get to start finding those hubs, and you say, man, we got about 30 people that are down here in Orlando. Let's organize some meetups for those people. And then next thing you know, you have a bunch of autonomous communities where nobody's feel like they have to bow down to anybody. But then when an idea comes, everybody's connected. When we say, hey, we want to do something about homelessness, we want to make an impact. You have everybody connected, and it's not just, oh, I have an idea, let's do this. It's what does the community have? You have the opportunity to inventory the community at large and leverage that capacity to do good in the world.
Yeah, we need a bunch of more Austins, yeah. That needs to be happening at a lot of different places. Yeah. And I think there are a lot of non-believers everywhere. It really just is a matter of us not knowing where to find each other.
Yeah, because we don't have spaces.
Right. And I like Black non-believers where they're, trying to build community and, find each other in their cities. And
definitely go support Black non-believers. They're doing the difficult work of trying to make this happen.
Yes.
And we do. We need like a directory or something.
Yes. That is actually one of my plans for sure. We got to get more connected. We got to get out of our silos, and it's hard because one of our lines, which is an accurate line, is that atheism is not a religion. Atheism is not a worldview. Atheism is not a community. Atheism is just the fact that we don't believe in a God. But for those of us who are humanists, we got to do a little bit more than that. But because that is a worldview, that does have a connection to an outcome.
Yeah.
And so if people are coming out, if we're constantly screaming atheist is a non-identity, they're trying to figure out then what the fuck is the identity gonna be then? Who am I now?
Right. Exactly. Which, I mean, it's hard. Man, it took me years to figure out, okay, what is my life without this facet of it?
Yes.
And it's difficult for a lot of people, clearly.
It is.
I also think there's a lot of people who are, I don't know, it's a weird place. I consider them very religious. I think if you talk about God, I think if you talk about faith, if you claim to have a relationship with Jesus, any of these things, I think you're very religious. But I think a lot of those people don't necessarily see themselves as religious. And they sort of are just there wearing the jersey, I think, and to have that sense of positive community.
Yep.
I think they're already kind of halfway looking for something. I think they've realized a lot of the stuff doesn't really jive,
They are. On the last Black Nonbelievers episode I did on the channel, I mentioned that many of the musicians in Black churches are actually non-believers. You'd be surprised how many non-believers, how many musicians ended up commenting on that, saying, yes, this is me. Wow. This is me. Because it's reality. And that's that thing that I remind people. Church, again, it creates opportunity for people. That was a little Black musician who just wanted to make music and does not have any connections in the music world. And the church is the place where he can go and get a paycheck for $800 a week every week just to play for 2 days a week. That's life for him. And so even though he knows, I no longer believe this, where am I going to get this opportunity at? Who else is creating space like that for me?
Right.
And it just, man, they're between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, I remember telling people, I played at a church as a non-believer, and sometimes like the people I were dating and hanging out with, they wouldn't understand, like, why do you spend all this other time with them? So you play there, you have to be in their services, you have to go to rehearsal. But why do you go to Bible study? Why do you go to all their parties? Why are you going to their conferences? I go, like any other band, we have a lot more chemistry the more time we spend together not playing. So I'm going to those things because that's where all my bandmates are. All my bandmates are going to be in the same place at one time. It'd be a little weird if the drummer wasn't there. So I'm just going to be there hanging out with my band. And so you do end up being a huge part of each other's lives. And yeah, like you said, it's just a part. It's just part of a band. It's really great. It's really great.
But see, you just took us right back to the beginning, because the beginning was people to hang out with, like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But do you see how hanging out with people becomes natural when you're already working together?
Yeah.
Ooh.
You know what I'm saying?
That was good.
It's just a natural byproduct of it, because that's who we end up hanging out with anyway. It's the people we're already engaged with, we're working with on something. It's you're working late. Hey, do you want to go get a beer? And church is no different for that. That's how it becomes such an effective community. Church is really good at getting people involved, getting people active, and having such diversified groups that you could be interested in singing, you could be interested in cooking, you could be interested in outreach, you could be interested in helping people in prison. Whatever your interest is, that church community, if it's a healthy one, that's a tricky word to use. If it's semi-healthy, it's going to try to find a way to create space for that. And that's what you see with those churches who are high growth. They don't just have one thing going on. They have kitchen ministries, food ministries. They have shelters. They have children who go to the old folks' home and sing songs and things like that. It's a myriad of things. Yeah. And it's not the pastor sitting in an office thinking of those things. It's the people in the community who are saying, I think this would be a good idea. And because the community exists, there's enough people there who can say, I kind of gravitate towards that too. And now think about how hard that is to do if you don't have that community infrastructure. Because I think we've all had ideas of things that we'd love to do to try to make a difference, but then it's just me, myself, and I. But if you're a part of a pre-existing community, and then one day you're like, I think I want to make a difference in recidivism, you actually have a group of people and a cooperative economic source to pull from to actually support those ideas. So it accelerates solutions. The problem is the church, because of its superstition, isn't equipped to measure the outcomes of their solutions. That's so right. As long as we did the event, it was good. It was a success.
Right. Yeah. And man, it'd be great to see some atheists, Christmas caroling and going out for beer afterwards. There's no reason we couldn't.
Yes. Oh, that sounds funner, man. Like Christmas caroling with beer just seems like the best way to do that. That's the best way to do
it. Yeah. So look, this is.
Okay. I'm gonna say it and I'm gonna shut up. But that was such a simple thing you said, but when we all think about that, the reason people did that was to spread joy.
Yes.
And I think when people think about atheism, they don't think about people committed to spreading joy. And that's something we really need to think about. Do people see the utility of the secular community? Are we out here just to tell you to wake up, grow up, and get with it? Or I think PC put in the chat, or are we really here to reduce harm? Are we really here to help make life better? And sometimes it's not tackling those big problems. Sometimes it's doing those simple things, such as just spreading joy. So if we can get together and sound like a bunch of cackling hens and it's going to make somebody's night feel a little better, those are things we could be committed to. It's too easy not to do.
Yeah. No, this is awesome, Darante. I'm glad Darante was ready for this. He was.
If anybody was going to be ready for it, he was.
Yeah, he did.
I really hope.
He was ready for the group project. Me and Maya just gonna take the good grade.
Yes. Oh man.
Black Nonbelievers had a gospel choir.
They do.
They do.
Yes.
They do.
Yes.
They do. They have a gospel choir, and I think they're always accepting applications and
they
stuff.
Are.
So
looking for tenors and basses right now.
Yeah. So definitely head over to Black Nonbelievers. I think PC put their link in the chat as well. So
yes.
Thank you so much, PC. Always dropping all the links. I really appreciate that.
I love that profile photo for PC. That's just it's dripping.
Yeah. Also, thanks to all the mods. We appreciate y'all. Thanks to everybody in the chat. All right, Maya and Darante, give us your closing thoughts and let the people know what you got going on this week.
Go ahead, Darante.
I'm gonna keep mine simple, and that is just hey, wherever you are, try to build some community. If you can't find it, that means you have to build it. If you want it to be there and you can't find it, that means you have to build it. And if you're looking for it, 9 times out of 10, you're not that special. Somebody else is looking for it too. And so keep those things in mind and just start putting out some flyers, and don't feel like you have to have a plan. I think that was the hardest thing about being a part of superstition, is you feel like you got to know all the answers in advance. No, you are a human being, and the other people who will be interested in this will be human beings as well. And so, I hate to be just straight up, just find some people who are willing to fuck up together. And I promise you, you're gonna slip up and find out. You know what I'm saying? And again, to find me, you can find me at Darante LaMar. I actually do have a whole series on building secular community called Thesis of Secular Community from our Sunday sessions. You can find it on my channel, and that's Darante LaMar. So if you're serious about it, take a look at it. And if you're serious about launching secular community, a local secular community where you are, regardless of what you want it to look like, and you want to talk to somebody and bounce those ideas off, holla at your boy. I'm here for you.
I don't know why I thought it would be a great idea to follow him. I'm just an old mom. I'm gonna get on here and be like, go on out there and play nice with your cousin.
Right? I love it.
I think everybody knows how passionate I am about community. And
yes.
if you're not going to play nice, I'm gonna get the belt. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
And it's actually how Jay and I got so close. Fighting Nazis. It's
Fight Nazis,
kind of
yeah.
a passion of ours, right?
In the trenches together.
In the trenches.
Like we're gonna be a cohesive community come hell or high water.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I have just a passion for seeing people living their best life. And one of my greatest joys is just seeing a smile on somebody's face or the passion in their voice when they're just talking about something that actually brings them joy. If you know what I mean. There's just nothing like it. Or like, for instance, when there was actually somebody is AR. She used to go by Atheist Rationale, and I remember the first time she bought like this jean jacket and out of the girls section. So people didn't really know from looking at it whether it was boys jacket or girls jacket, but she knew it was a girls jacket and she couldn't come out to anybody around her, but like she wore it all the time because like it was an article of girls clothing and it made her feel like her true self. And I don't know. It was just the way she spoke about it.
Mm-hmm.
Where I'm like, yeah, that right there, like that look in her face right there. When nobody else except this community was calling her. Everybody else, everybody she knew was misgendering her, IRL.
Yep.
She came here and got community. And that's the environment I want to foster for everyone. I want everyone to be able to come to any community I'm in and feel that way. And I don't know. That's why I do what I do. But if, we welcome you if you're willing to be inclusive. And my channel, I always do this at my Adkisson. We go live every Sunday, 9:30 to 11:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I do a show called Bad Science Sunday where we take a comedic approach at laughing at idiots grifters who are trying to normalize bad science, and we're not going to let that happen. Not on my watch.
That. I love that.
So yeah, if you come on over.
So mommy said I threw a drink in your face in The Sims.
Well,
in my
damn.
face? Oh, Jay did. Oh,
yeah.
I'm sorry, Jay's face. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like something I do.
Me too. I would definitely throw a drink at somebody. All right. So, my thing is if you can get together with other Black non-believers in your life, please do, because man, that's awesome. But if you can't and you think it's hard, yeah, I agree. It's hard. I can't figure it out either. So, I just wanted to kind of commiserate about it because it is difficult. And I feel like if there's other Black non-believers out there, I don't want them to think that they're alone in that. You have unity in the fact that we are all struggling with this together because it's really a difficult challenge. But also, it's so important to have online community to support you through the process and, use that as a launching point. So definitely come hang out with us and join us and gather if you can. Thanks to PC for dropping those links again. And you can find me at Pocket Locker 86. And, we'll be here for you guys next Monday. Let me go ahead and get this thing wrapped up. All right, so don't forget to check out the other shows on Skeptic Haven. Monday's the Black Freethinkers, Thursday's the Sunny Spot, Saturday the Global Atheist and Women Atheist Unload, and Let's Talk on Sunday. Also, thank you to the patrons, Paul Camish, Helen Greene, Logan Fisher, Amanda McLeod, Eric Ozols, Rion, Deneen Murphy, Dan D, Michael Wiseman, Sunny Shell, Aaron Coalson, and Phil Calderone. All right, gang. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thanks to all the mods. Thanks to Skeptic Haven. And thanks to everybody in the chat.
Vote and bring a friend.
All right. We'll see you next time. Said I'm gone.